So let's see what we have in this animation, right? So if I run it, I think we're going to get some cubes randomly going up and down. So this is going to be random motion, right? They go up nicely, they come back at some point, and then they go up randomly. So every time we run it, it's going to be a little different, right? So if I go to the script and I run it again, I don't know if you can notice, but it's going to be a little different. Really can't tell, right? But that's the project. So let's get started. So as before, I'm going to open up, yeah, I could say that. And I need to open up the template, right? Is this it? So make sure I'm in the right place, right? Scene grade. And I go to Blender and I want the template. So I should have a nice template here to start. This is the one that I'm doing. I should have no errors, right? Nothing is happening. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make that animation. So I'm going to say define animation. This is a function, right? Define animation. And what do I need? Well, I'm going to first make the cubes, right? So size equals 1, and I need to know the number of cubes. Oops, down here. So num cubes, let's make 8, right? And then I think we have a gap between them. I'd say 0.5, right? So those are our global variables. And we're going to set the y position also. Y position equals 0 for this one. They'll be in 0. Now we need to make some cubes for x in range, right? And num cubes. And I need to make some cubes. So the first thing I need is the location, right? Location equals, we've done this a few times. I think I just need this, right? Location is equal to x times the size plus the gap, and then we need y position, right? Y position, and z will be just 0. So that's the location. Now I need to, make that, use that code to make this mesh, right? Because we have this a few times now. So I'm gonna get this code, and location size equals size, and that should make some cubes, right? So if I run it, I should end up with some cubes. Oh, I didn't run the function, right? So I have to say animation, and let's see if that makes sense. So I didn't, as you see, I didn't add any material, so that will be the next thing, is to do just a couple more things. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to name this, so I'm going to name this, I'm going to say cube animation, and I'm going to say 1. This is animation 1. We're going to have a couple plus string x. Okay, so that gives everyone a different name, and then I'm going to have to apply this name. So I have this code previously where it's just not good enough having the name, you have to apply it. So you see we applied the name. The other thing that I didn't do is I didn't make the material, right? So I think I have to make the material. Where could I do that? I think I could do it right here before the name. So mat equals make material, right? And then of course we have to use that code to apply. I think this is it, or I have it somewhere, right? And you have it somewhere too. So I did make the material and I applied it. So let's see if I have some nice looking cubes. There they are, right? So we made the cubes, but of course now we have to do the animation. But anyway, this is the first part. So let's make the animation, right? So I'm going to comment here. I'm going to say animation. This is the animation part. So I need to know how many keyframes I want. So I'm going to say num frames. These are num frames. You know how many keyframes? Let's make 10, right? So that's 10 ups, 10 bounces, right? And now I'm going to say, well, I need to start at which keyframe. So I'm going to say keyframe. The first keyframe is always going to be 0. And then I'm going to set up a loop for f, which is the frame in range. And I want it to go to num frames, right? So I'm going to do frames, 10 bounces, right? So let's look at how we're going to do the bounce, right? So we're going to do a random, I think, a random position, right? A random position. So I need a range. So I'm going to set up a range here. I'm going to say bounce equals, let's say 5. So it's going to go between +5 and -5, right? And so let's see what we do here. So I'm going to go and so there's two positions that I'm interested in, right? One position, did I get it right? Position is the initial position, right? Which is the location. Remember, location was, so that's the initial position. And the other position is the random one, right? So that will be the other location. So the thing is, I can call that X, comma Y, comma Z. Well, actually, Z is going to be random. See, so we want to make a decision between these two, right? And I'm going to set the random. This one will be the random one, right? So I will say X equals location, the initial position, 0. That's the X component of the initial position. Y equals location 1. That's the Y position. But the Z position will be random, right? So I want to do a random position for. So I'm going to use this random function way up here. You see random, and I'm going to say random. Oops. Let's do it. Random. Rand int. And it'll be between minus bounce and bounce. So that will be the random. And then your X, Y, and Z will change. So every time now, of course, we have to increase the keyframe, right? So keyframe plus equals, let's say 20. So that will animate each one, right? But the thing is, that I want it to be 0 at the beginning, right? So if I just do this, they'll be all over. So, but I could test this out. So I'm going to make a decision here. If f is equal to 0, that's the first frame. It's going to be the initial location, right? So else it'll be equal to the random position. So I'm going to indent that, you see? And then, so I have to, so at the first, it'll be the position, location, that's the initial position, and then this will be random. So let's just see. I'm going to run that. Rand int, did I misspell that? Random, rand int, rand int. Okay, so let's check this out to see if I'm getting, anything here, right? So it doesn't look like I'm getting anything. They're not moving around. Let's see the script, right? Well, I forgot a big part of this, right? Is to actually get some code from before. This code, let's see, should be right here, indented. And we have to set the keyframe, right? So I have all these positions. Position. So I have these positions, but of course they didn't apply. So I have to apply them. So let's see, run. And now I should have some frames. So if I reset and, all right. So the first one is doing it, right? But not the others, right? So let's check that out. Okay. So I made a big mistake here is I didn't indent this, properly. So this has to be inside the for loop. So it didn't do it for every one of them, you see? So let's try that, right? So I'm gonna run that. And now they look like they're all moving around nicely, see? So let's do it, right? And you see them moving around, right? And what do I'm at 180, so let me set this to 180 and see what the deal is, right? So 180, what happens at 180? And you see at 180, they're still kind of, all over the place. So this is pretty good, it's pretty nice, but I like at the end for them to end up at 0 again, the initial location. So that would be our next part, right? Let's get them back to 0. So I'm going to stop this animation. I'm going to go back to the script. And so So this will run 10 frames, and on the last frame, I like to get them back to 0. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say if f equals 0, or f equals num frames minus 1. That's the last frame. Minus 1 is the last frame. So on the last frame, it won't be random. It will be back to 0. So let's try that, right? Run script. And I'm going to go and just going to check the end here, right? And you see that should be 0. So it should all go back. Oh, nice. You see, so that really works well. They all go back to 0. And there it is. Nice. So what I want to do now is I want to do more rows, right? So let's do some more rows, right? So I'm going to do this is I'm going to copy this function. You see this function animate, but I'm going to call it animate one, right? Animate one, and that should still give me what I had before, right? But I can't have two functions with the same name. So I'm going to copy this function here, right? At the end, I'm going to call it animate two. Animate 2. The Y position cannot be the same, can't be a 0. So I'm going to set it to size plus gap. That'll put it in the next one, right? And the other thing I have to change is the name. I have to change that name. And of course, I have to call the function animation 2. And now, did I get that right? Yeah. And if I run this, I should get 2 rows. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's see if they all animate. So I'm going to random. All right. So they're all animating randomly. And they all should get back to 0. See, nice. Okay, so they all get back. So here what you have to do. You have to make 6 rows of these. Okay, we want 6 rows. I don't care how many cubes you have in each row, but you have to make 6 rows. That's your job.